What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Talk of the Town, your Ipswich Town podcast, and thanks for joining us today. This is the podcast that brings you the latest news, views, and all things Ipswich. And as you can see, for those watching on YouTube, I am joined today by another very special guest. We've gone into the vault, we've gone into the football history of Ipswich Town, and we found a man that delivered some really exciting moments for Ipswich. For those that are watching on YouTube, you can, of course, take us out and about with you via Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, etc. And for those listening, you can, of course, watch this podcast in a video format on YouTube. So, David Norris is our guest today. Thanks for joining us today, David. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for agreeing to come on. I know it's not a particularly easy time at the moment with lockdown and all the stresses that brings in terms of. I think when I spoke with Alex, he was homeschooling his children, so I know that can, the stresses can be real for us parents at the moment. But first and foremost, you of course are owner of Unique Fitness. You can of course find that on Twitter. Handles at the bottom of the screen right now. How did you first and foremost get into the fitness industry? I know you're a football player, but that's not necessarily a shoe-in.
Yeah, no. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I got to 30, 31 and started to have a mini panic up of that I've only probably got a few years, if it goes well, left in me. What am I going to do? But I was into my fitness. It was my strongest attribute as a player. I could get up and down the pitch. I looked into it a lot. I made sure I was always as fit as I possibly could be. So I did have an interest in it. And so I wasn't too fussed about coaching or staying in the game in management role, but I was into my fitness. And so that was where I thought, well, maybe I can do something that way. I can set up a gym if I wasn't going to stay in football as a fitness coach and go down that route. So I had a couple of people who had been doing gyms and had lost their way a little bit. And so I got in touch with them and just said, look, do you fancy doing something together? And I got something rolling before I'd finished footy, knowing that I could step into something.
Wise, okay. And of course, when I spoke to a few people and I said, I had David coming on the podcast, the first thing they said was we've seen his videos on Twitter in terms of getting out and about and cycling and keeping not only physically fit but also mentally fit. And that's an important thing at the moment through lockdown is people need to look after themselves and take time out. What sort of advice would you give to people at home maybe watching this who might be struggling for physical or mental health fitness?
Yeah, I think for quite a lot of people, to be honest, it can go hand in hand. I'm finding that a lot of the people I either personal train or gym members or even just the general public are struggling without the gym. And that's becoming a mental struggle than it is, just as much as it's a physical struggle. And so, I'm putting up some workouts they can do. Obviously, it's a bit harder to motivate yourself at home to work out, and especially without equipment. So, I've just done something this last week, and it's just a step challenge. And it's just getting a group together. Anyone can join it, and you got to complete a certain amount of steps within a week, but it gets people out. It gets them in the fresh air. They feel better once they feel like they've done a bit of exercise, burned a few calories. And I think the mental part of it is just as important as it is the physical, and it's just keep mobile. It's a difficult time, and so whether it's a walk, whether it's a run, whether it's a mini workout in your house or whatever you need to do, I think most people always feel better after a little bit of something anyway like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just about taking time for yourself and not being too hard on yourself. Maybe if some days you don't achieve certain goals you've set out for yourself, then that's okay. Take it as a day that you've taken for yourself, and then the next day don't have a zero day. Don't beat yourself up, I guess is the key, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think with some of my the one-to-one clients, that has been one of the big things we've looked at. We've almost, for some of them, we've paused the goal and just said almost, let's get through this period of time now. If we can get through this without the pressure of having to, I need to do this, I need to do that. Let's maintain where we're at. And if we can come through this and we're where we are now, then happy days, we can kick on again after. But let's take the pressure off of putting so much pressure on yourself in a difficult situation and making it worse. And just, like you say, one day if we have a good day, fine, we feel good, let's go and do some work. Next day, if we're not feeling it so much, okay, we'll just take this day, just have a little walk and we'll look at it again tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I've done CBT therapy because I've got OCD. Sometimes it's good to note down what you've done so you can actually see on a bit of paper okay, I've not done nothing. I've actually done quite a lot. Because sometimes we take things for granted and just think, well, I'll do that all the time. But you've still done it. You've still actively tried to build towards your goal, you know? So
yeah,
maybe
no,
that's
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think the thing with the steps is. People just, you know, they're up and about and they're mobile and they just think I've not done anything today. But if you have a little look and think, wow, I've done 10, 12, 15,000 steps, you know, that is something. If you convert that into miles and calories, you've achieved. I'm
sitting here and I'm starting to get a bit of a complex. We're both in lockdown, but you're looking $1 million, you know, trim, good hair, the hair I want, the beard I want. And I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking, oh my days, you're looking worse and worse by the minute. You're now laying back and he's showing off the guns.
Oh, no, mate, wow. I've got some good light in here. I can see that I do look a bit either red or tan. The hair is, honestly, it's got all sorts in it, keeping it together at the minute. It's going curly, wavy, everything. I can almost clip this off, but it's hanging on, and I'm getting by just about.
Lego hair.
Yeah, pretty much it is. That's what it feels like.
Right, so we do a couple of things with our guests, and I did it with a good friend of yours, Alex. First of all, it's wiki true or wiki false, where we just have a quick look at your Wikipedia page and we ask you a few questions, and just to make sure it's up to date and it's correct. Now, your Wikipedia page actually was fairly tidy. So right. whoever you pay to do that, they're doing a great job. No. You know, so I brought a couple of things out. First and foremost, your middle name is Martin.
Correct, yeah.
Great name. Right spelling with an I.
Yeah, that's right, always.
Top man. You're born on the 22nd of February?
No.
No?
No, the 20th.
Wow.
Now, this got changed early on in my career, and I spent maybe the first 4 years every time someone said it correcting them. And then after that, I just thought, I'm going to roll with it. To the point, I even just started celebrating my birthday on the 22nd. It gone on that much, and it's on everything. And so now I've just almost rolled with it.
Wow, okay. Wiki false.
Yeah, the 20th of February.
So you're like the Queen, really? You get 2 birthdays a year.
Yeah,
nice.
Pretty much, yeah.
Transferred to Bolton for a fee of 50,000. I know it's not money, but that's what it's on there?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Perfect. In 2.5 years with Bolton, you made 1 appearance.
Yeah, no, I made a few, but only cups.
Right.
So I think I made about 3 or 4, but, you know, it was like League Cup games and FA Cup early rounds.
It's not me, David. I didn't write this. I'm just...
Yeah, no. So that was not quite.
Right, so that's 2 things we've got to look into for Wikipedia.
Yeah.
You know, that's not right. Because I'm actually putting my show notes here thinking most of this would be correct. Okay, all good so far. So I'm just glad I read that before I said it.
Yeah. How tall does it say I am? That's one I've always wanted to change.
Doesn't say, I'm afraid. That's more or less what I could pull out, thinking that, okay, you know, there's a few things that might be wrong, but probably not.
Yeah.
Before we go into the quick fire round. So this is the early round where it's almost like a Jim Magilton training session, if you like. 2 touch, out of your feet. Don't think about it too much, David. Just go with it.
Right,
right?
Yeah, no worries.
Netflix or Amazon Prime?
Netflix.
Yeah, what's on Netflix that you watch at the moment you could tell people at home?
What am I watching at the minute? What have I just finished?
Oh, it's so good then. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I can't think what I've just finished. I've just finished something. I can't remember what it is.
This is a ringing endorsement.
Got me. I'm not good with these. I need prep.
Chinese or curry?
Chinese.
What's your meal? What's your dish?
Duck, ribs.
Oh, good man. Robbie or Roy Keane?
Roy
Keane. If you had
I have to say that.
Yeah. If you had to impress somebody in the kitchen, what would be your go-to recipe?
If what, sorry?
You had to impress somebody in the kitchen, what would be your go-to recipe?
Oh, chicken wraps. The kitchen's not a place for me. I am basic. Yes, because that beans on toast before, but now I've learned how to do the chicken for the kids. So
you've upgraded. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Heads and volleys or Wembley doubles?
Heads and volleys.
Heads and volleys. Okay. You're the first person I think that's actually said heads and volleys, or one of the first.
Really? Nah, I like volleying. I used to practice volleying. I love volleying. I've scored a few volleys, so I'm always volleys.
Good man. Yeah. Alex went for Wembley doubles.
Yeah.
His partner was Michael, you know.
Yeah, because he wants someone else to do it for him. That's why.
Yeah, name drop.
Yeah, exactly.
What it was.
Yeah. Who?
Kasper Schmeichel. 4-4-2-3-1.
4-2-3-1.
Yeah. Where would you play the 4-2-3-1 if you could choose it?
The second one off the striker in that three.
Yeah.
So a bit of a goal hanger, and I've got someone behind me. I can run forward and don't have to get back, but I've got the freedom to get in the box.
Yeah. If you've got an Ivan Campo next to you.
Yeah. Just leave him there, sit him there, and let me get
What times they were? We'll get into those later on.
Yeah.
That team was surreal. Campo behind you, the Santos in front of you. I mean.
Yeah. God, I know we had some players.
We did.
Some team there.
So before we do go talk Ipswich, obviously you were at Plymouth.
Yeah.
You left what could be described as a really good Plymouth side, probably one of the best they've had in a number of years.
Yeah, I think so.
Who was the best player you played alongside at Plymouth?
At Plymouth, we had Scott Sinclair came down. I think he came on loan at first to us, and obviously he's gone on to do well up at Celtic.
Yeah.
But when he first came down, he was young, he was stick thin, he was small, and when he was late to training because he was filling in his forms, and he's come over, and I was like, who's this kid? Like, he looks like he's not even going to be able to handle anything, but we're going to throw at him. And so we were doing first team shape, so 11v11. He had just joined onto the reserve team against the first team because he had just joined, and he got the ball out on the wing, and he's nutmegged me. And I've tried to he's gone round me, so I've tried to kick him. He's just hurdled my kick, took on the right back, crossed it in, and they've scored. And then I was like, okay, we got a player, yeah. And then he went on and scored a couple of great, wonder goals for us. And then went on and done pretty well.
So when that happens on the training field with a new signing like that, do you turn to your other senior pros and colleagues and raise your eyebrows and go, yeah, not bad.
Yeah. If you get something like that. Yeah. Then you're like, yeah, right. Well, we've got something here. This looks good. Yeah,
I thought you'd say Ebanks Blake.
Yeah, he was good. He was a good finisher. Yeah, but there was a few. I mean, a lad called Akos Buzaki in QPR, technically gifted. Wow, he could do anything he wanted with the ball, but he just didn't have. For me, he just didn't have a strong enough mentality to go all the way. But what he could do with the ball was unbelievable. And we had Barry Hales was there. We had Barry Hales. He did well for us, and we had some pretty good players come through there because of the managers we had coming in, like Pulis, Holloway, Sturrock. They could attract some people because of it's. To be fair, it's the end of the world when you're down there. It's that far, so it's quite hard to get people there. But yeah, we got some good players come through while I was there. And
of course, you've just mentioned there you played under some good managers at Plymouth. Of course, the eccentric, the lovable Ian Holloway. Everyone's got a story, it seems, about Mr. Holloway. What do you remember about your time working under him? I loved it. It was really good. It was enjoyable. We were struggling at the time. We were down the bottom, probably going to go down. Morale was low, and he just come in and lifted the whole place. His personality is exactly like he is as you see him. Funny, fun and games. He just lifted us all, made you feel 10 feet tall, put his arm around players and said, look, you're good enough, you're good enough, you're just having a tough time, we're going to get together, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it was brilliant. And he just lifted the place because he can be serious, but he always loves a laugh. And, he would do stuff like, we would do the team meeting the day before a game, so it'd be quite serious in a meeting room, and he'd flip the board for their team, and he'd have drawn all their team and players in caricatures of what he thinks they look like. And then big noses, big hairs, this big ass or whatever, and everyone would be on the floor in stitches, and he's trying to do a team talk. But it lifted us. It kept the morale was great. Everyone we had a good laugh and got serious when we needed to. But he did great for us. We flew up the league. And obviously we'll get into as we go through your career, different managers and their approaches and whatnot. But obviously you've played under one extreme, in Warnock to the other extreme in Holloway. What do you think makes Ian Holloway, the manager that he has been? He's had such success over his career. A strong number two, or is it the ability to put the arm round? What makes Ian just a fantastic manager? Yeah, I think with any of the managers that tend to do well, they have
I mean, they'll all have different tactics, their way they want to play the game, the different ways of motivating. But if you can get the players wanting to play for you, wanting to run through a brick wall for you, I think whether that's an arm round them or whether that's a rollicking, or whether we could create the right environment in the training ground and around the club, if you get that, you're going to have a chance, I think. And Ian Holloway was brilliant for that. I mean, he could kick us up the arse when we needed it, lose his head, which you don't really see much of. But then he could, if he felt morale was low, he'd lift us and do something, random, and everyone would be laughing on the floor, and it just lift the whole place. So I think he just had a knack of knowing who needed what and when and what time to do it. And like I say, it worked for us.
So it's having that finger on the pulse of the dressing room, really, isn't it? It's what you're saying there.
I think so.
When you look back over the time at Plymouth, what one thing jumps out at you when you reflect on that time? Is there a story or a situation or why didn't we do that? Or that was a fantastic time. Is there anything that jumps out at you from Plymouth?
The promotion, getting promoted, winning that league, because of, we went into the Championship and we started really well, but we would have been one of the lowest budget teams down there. We were definitely not the best team, but we had a really, really good team spirit. Most other clubs I've been at, say for Leeds example, players lived in Manchester, Liverpool, we had a lad in Leicester. You train together, you might have some food after everyone gets off. In Plymouth, everyone's almost stuck there. There is no going anywhere else.
No. So
then players would eat together, but they'd socialise together, train together. You had to be close, you had to get on, and we had a really good, close-knit, team. And that was that was what all our success was based on, was the team spirit we had. And winning that league, I think, going up to the Championship, that was nice.
Yeah, I bet it was a real good time to look back on. And of course, you got the memories and the medals and whatnot. But you did eventually make the move to Ipswich, and I say eventually because it was, or it appeared to be, as a fan, a really drawn out affair. When did you first hear that Ipswich were interested in you?
I guess I can just say now, it was the summer before contact was made. I moved in the end of January. The summer before was when there was a serious interest made, and Plymouth didn't want me to leave, which, I was happy there at the time. Even up to when I did leave, I was actually happy there. I'd had a good time there, been there a long time, but the club had come to an end for me at that time. It needed either a new investment or a backing to take it to the next level. Otherwise, it peaked. But yeah, Ipswich, I know had made contact. I'd spoke to Jim the summer before, and it had been almost kept in touch ever since throughout up until the day I signed.
And you hear these days of players forcing moves away. Was there any appetite on your behalf to maybe try and force that move in the summer, or were you really looking to get into the season with Plymouth and see how far you could take a football club of their size?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I remember thinking, is this the end for Plymouth? Should I move on now? Is it the right time? But I think some of that was taken out of my hands because of Plymouth were going to want a good fee, and at that time Ipswich couldn't do it or wasn't going to be doing it. So it was taken out of my hands to the point where there was no point to force it. So I was happy just to see how it played out. Come the January time, then yeah, I had to actually come in and force that one.
Yeah. So, of course, you just say in the summer there was little, if no money. And then we had the Marcus Evans bio takeover, the multimillionaire. And times, as a Town fan, was suddenly very intriguing and exciting. And you were obviously at the top of that list of recruitments for Jim. Was it exciting to hear Jim come back in for you? And was it also personally a moment where you felt wanted and loved? Because he could have gone at that point for anyone, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still say now, with regards to Jim, that the first manager who proper, backed me and put a lot of faith in me, especially, personally and with the finances. So, that made me, feel like I wanted to do everything and anything to repay that for him. So it was nice, yeah. I mean, I knew they kept watching my games at Plymouth throughout that whole time up until the January. And so I still knew that there was a chance that something could happen. And especially once the money come in, it was just a matter of how hard work it was going to be with Plymouth because there was a sell-on fee.
Was there ever a time during January, because it seems like a long month sometimes, but it's also a very short time in football. Was there ever a time in January where you felt it wasn't going to happen for you?
Yeah, because of it went to the last day.
Yeah.
So I think there was negotiations the whole way through. And in the end, I think Plymouth were just going to see it out to the end of the season. They knew me and my nature, that should it not have gone through, it wouldn't have affected me. I would have still given everything on the pitch. And I think they played on that as in, let's just get through this month. But at that time, Holloway had left. Some of our other better players had started getting picked off by other clubs, and I thought, this is my time to move. And so it come down to the last day where I went to the chairman's house and just said, look, I'll give you 5.5 years of everything. I've got a chance to go up to, which is a bigger club. They've got a better chance of kicking on as well at that time. And so I just said, I feel like I've given you everything. Like, let me go, please. And obviously the finances for me personally as well was going to change.
Yeah. So when you did eventually sign for it, what was the first thing Jim said to you? How did he, not that he had to sell it to you by the sounds of it, but what did he say about his plans and the club as a whole?
Well, at that time, Ipswich were doing pretty well anyway. The way they played their football, obviously, once I'd known the interest, I'd been following them and keeping an eye on, what was happening there. And Jim just come in, and I think he tried to maybe just, diffuse the whole saga that had gone on and just say, look, we're done now. Great to have you here. Let's concentrate on the football. Let's do something good.
Did he actually say any sort of plans for you as a player? Did he say he was going to build the midfield around you? Did he tell you where you would be playing, or did you not ask? Not everyone asked.
Yeah, I didn't really ask. I've never really been, whatever club I've been at, I've never been one to, what's your plans, what you're going to do. I feel like I've always left that to them. And then it's up to me to where I fit in. I've always been a centre midfielder or a right midfielder, but predominantly centre mid. And so they knew that. As long as they knew that was where I prefer to play, then it's up to me then to get in and make my mark on the team. I can't go in and say, yeah, so you're going to build it around me. Am I going to play? Am I doing this? So I was happy just to go with that's my preferred position. Then it's up to me to make sure I play there. Even though it was a decent fee and it come after me a long time, it didn't mean I was stepping into a good changing room. It wasn't going to be as easy.
Was it difficult making a move in January? Is it in terms of leaving a club halfway through, joining a dressing room, finding the flow of that dressing room?
Yeah, I think it is, because a lot can happen in the pre-season, as in settling and getting players, together, because there are normally a few other new players in there as well. You're training twice a day pre-season, so you're around each other a lot. You'll normally have a trip away. You'll have a couple of nights out and stuff like that. What all just helps you settle where they're already settled. We might have brought in another 2 or 3, which will help me, but in general, the changing room's sorted. And so it's difficult to step into. And I was leaving. I remember I'm coming in from a big fee as well and leaving a very, comfortable and I was very close to the players there at Plymouth. So it's not easy, doing that halfway through.
Who did you bond with instantly or quickly within the Ipswich Town dressing room?
Alex Bruce was one. Yeah, I got on well with Brucey. He was he lived in the same apartment block as I did, where he pretty much might as well have just lived in my apartment at the time. He was there. He was in my apartment before I got back from training. So we got on. He helped me settle because it was. I've said it before, but I struggled at first. I struggled with the price tag. Coming into a change room with bigger egos. So it was nice to have someone there. There was a couple of new players. Alan Quinn had come at the same time as me, so I was close to him. And then Brucey, did really help me settle.
Yeah, and we've heard stories on this podcast from Alex where he was taken out for dinner before his debut by Sir Bob. Did anyone take you out? Did anyone put an arm around you from the club, from its history or current, and guide you through and make you feel welcome?
No one went. No one went out of their way, but it was a very, family-orientated feel club, which I liked. Some of the older players, some of the older staff, all the staff around the training ground. Everyone was really quiet, and you can see, they wanted the club to do well. They wanted the players to do well. So, no one in particular, but as a whole, it was a very welcoming atmosphere.
So obviously Jim's a very well-regarded man in Ipswich from his playing days and also his management. What was it like playing under Jim?
It was an experience.
I've heard that a few times now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like Jim, and he was, like I say, he put a lot of faith into me, and I got a lot of time for that. And he was a good manager. He had high standards. The training was good, short, sharp, enjoyable. But he's got a temper. He's got a hot head. So I know I was first, when I first signed him, he would come steaming in at half time, red raw, frothing at the mouth, walking up and down, and you're just thinking, it's going to go off here. Brian Clue, his assistant, would come in, put his arm around him, walking back out of the changing room, give him a minute, and Jim would come back in, and then he would be calm, and he would start talking. Right, look, it's not been good enough. This is that. We need to change that. What do you think? And then you could see it. It was angering himself, thinking about it as he was saying it, until he exploded again. And then, what are you thinking? And bottles would be launched and everything. So they tried to keep him calm and then get it crossed constructively at start. But he'd always just get too much and it'd explode. But like I say, he had that with him. But people wanted to play for him, and the training was really good, and like I say, short, sharp, and enjoyable, and he was a good manager.
Did you know anything about Jim before you arrived at Ipswich? Had you played up against him?
Yeah, I think that Plymouth played Ipswich during Jim's final season, and that is pretty much the start of my move to Ipswich. That's where it started, because he said to me at that time, we played each other and obviously directly against each other. And he's a chirpy so-and-so on the pitch, and I like to give back as well. But obviously I was a lot younger then. He was coming to the end. And he tried to intimidate me and calling me rubbish, this, crap, that, what's that all about, blah, blah, blah. But in the same game, I'd already scored. So I just went straight back. What are you talking about? I scored. Any chance you trying to keep with me and stop me scoring or what? And we had a bit of a verbal set too. But I think he liked it.
Yeah,
he liked that character part of me, and that stuck with him. And it reminded me of that one I signed. And he said, that was when I thought, I'm going to keep an eye on him.
Brilliant. There's been a few instances over the podcast, especially with Alex, where we've heard stories of maybe, I think Alex said Jim had him up against the wall. A club sandwich was launched at Jim, Alex from Jim. Was there anything in regards to yourself, or any stories that jump out from your time where you think, geez, how was that come about?
Just the similar sort of thing, the head loss, the uncontrollable head loss. The amount of times I've had to dry clean Powerade out my suit, where he's just gone and he launches bottles into the wall that explode everywhere, all over your gear and everything, and all over the players. I don't remember getting a direct one from him. I got a couple of times he'd have a word with me, but not a direct explosion. But obviously, I've been there and seen it a few times, and yeah, they're always interesting. I think Brucey got it a couple of times.
He did. He certainly said a few times. He did. Yeah. I mean, having worked under Holloway and had maybe some tactical approach, such as the caricature, as you mentioned earlier, how was that compared to Jim? How did Jim approach a game? How did he approach a game? Simple as that.
Yeah, so it was different. It was more serious, but it was. I like the detail of it. I like trying to get small percentages to win games. Like I do it as an individual. I'll make myself as good as I can for small percentages. And he was about that. So, we had a lot of meetings and watching the opposition and watching ourselves and analysing a lot of things to try and make us all better and taking it out to the training ground. And, I kind of like that approach, and it was like anything to get a small percentage to win games. So
where Ian was maybe more comedy and more making you at ease, Jim was about detail, which goes with his playing career as well. It was all about detail and getting that extra from you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he obviously they're both motivated in different ways as well. Jim with a bit more maybe of a fear factor, but yeah, coming in that way, yeah, I'd say Ian Holloway had it the way he wanted to play in his tactics, and sometimes that does get brushed under the carpet with the way his character is, but he is good at that. But then Jim was small percentages. Like I say, we had quite a lot of meetings and analysis of us and opposition.
And of course, you mentioned Alex Bruce. Sorry, not my friend. Sorry, and how he was very close to you. The dressing room as a whole appeared to be very, very close. I've heard a few occasions of a few nights out. How would you describe the dressing room at Ipswich when you were there?
Yeah, good. Well, overall, we had good dressing rooms. I mean, in my head, I can think more of the last season or two. Once I felt really settled, it was a change room then that I'd been part of from the start of the season. So there were good change rooms. I mean, we had some characters like we had Ben Thatcher, Jimmy Bullard.
Yeah.
So we've had some big characters. And when I first went there was a good changing room, but it wasn't my changing room. I was coming into it already under a little bit of pressure from a price tag. And then there were some big egos, which I wasn't used to. I was used to players, coming from bigger clubs but not playing. So there were reserve team players, young lads trying to make their way in the game, or local lads, trying to do well in the game, not people who'd been there, done it. Yeah. So coming into Ipswich changing room was tough for me. It was like, right, I'm going to have to step up here. There's some big egos, some big personalities, and I'm going to have to get, this is going to have to make, I'm going to have to step up to survive. And it did, and I did, and it definitely helped make me a better player for the rest of my career. Having done that, even though it was quite late, it definitely strengthened my my personality. But it was still a good change room. It was just bigger personalities and egos, and overall, I think Ipswich is a good club for that. There is a family feel to it. And obviously, once I moved on, there was different clubs which weren't quite the same. And so then you appreciate that a little bit more, that it was a nice club like that, and the change room was no different.
Absolutely. And, sadly, the expectations maybe weren't met at the football club. What do you feel held the squad back from finishing inside the playoffs? Because when I spoke to Alex, it was almost a regret of his, really, that the club didn't finish inside the playoffs, because the squad, he said, was there. So what do you feel really like sort of, hindered or hit or hurt the club?
Yeah, I don't know, I feel the same. I feel like if I look back on the time, it's one club I look back on fondly, good memories, was happy there, very happy. But I regret that we should have consistently made playoffs. And we did have a team. And once Jim had gone, I felt we've got a good team here, good squad, good players. We felt a little bit milky, a little bit soft at times when it come to digging in. And so I was thinking, Roy come in, that's probably the missing ingredient. But then that went too far the other way. So it was just like, it never, all fitted. It was either we were just one thing missing each time, and it was enough not to make it as successful as it should have been.
And sadly, Jim was sacked after finishing 9th. But of course, before he was sacked, let's discuss that last derby win that we've had. How did Jim get you ready for a derby? How did he lay the week out? What was the mood? Did he make it serious? Did he tell you how important it was?
Yeah, I think he made it serious, and just how big it was for the fans, and he made sure we knew that, which I think most homegrown English players will know what a derby means. And then once you're in that city and you play there, then you realise even more, especially in and around it, just what it means. And he definitely let us know just how big that game was. I think he tried to at times take the pressure off us in training to not let it get too serious, and so we were going to freeze on any occasions like that. So the training would still be as normal, but when it comes to the meetings or the odd message getting across, it was, this is a big game. This is one you don't want to lose, and we didn't.
What are your memories of that game? What looking back, 3-2 win?
Yeah, it was a great day. Sun was out. It was set up for a big game and a good day, and luckily we got it. So I look back and I watched it. Actually, it was on one of my socials not long ago, and I watched it back. And just remembering some of the stuff that I forgot, like some of the goals. It was a good day. You have to win them games. The actual games are not that enjoyable because of the pressure sometimes, where you have to win, you can't lose. And so I look back with that one, and the celebrations after especially are even, they're so much better. You can enjoy your week. Everything's better. Life's easier when you win a derby game.
Did you end up in I think it was Liquid then, the nightclub? Did you?
Every chance. But if I'd ended up in there, I wouldn't remember it anyway. But there's every chance. Yeah.
That's what Alex said. He mostly ended up after win.
yeah. And that was later on in the night. So by that time, if you're in there, you know that you're probably not going to remember it the next day. Anyway.
No, fair. No. Look at that team. That was some team. You've got experience with Richard Wright in goal, having played in the Premier League with Ipswich. But of course, you've got Ben Thatcher, Ivan Campo, Giovanni Dos Santos. Some team, right?
Some team. That's it. So when you look at it like that and you look back, it's almost like a disappointing that's them sort of players, that sort of team should be playoffs, should be making playoffs. But yeah, some great players there. Like even Campo, been there, done it all, everything. Giovanni Dos Santos, what a player! Could take the ball off the keeper and score. Just travel the whole pitch.
You spoke earlier in the podcast about Scott Sinclair turning up to training and you going, wow. What was it like when Giovanni Dos Santos walked out?
Yeah, similar. Again, you're looking at him, he's small, his body shape's not the best, like especially when he's getting changed top off, you're thinking, wow, like, but this doesn't look like an athlete. And then you give him a ball and it's, I'm keeping away from this guy so he doesn't make me look like a right mog in training or whatever. So, but he could do anything with the ball. It was stuck to his foot, in, out, chop, turn, spin, twist, and then he could put the ball where he wanted in the goal as well. So, yeah, some player, probably should have maybe kicked on a little bit more than he did. I think another one who didn't mind the night out though.
Yeah, well, that seemed to be the flavour of the dressing room that Jim was building at the time. And when you look at players, like Bizaki, like Giovanni Dos Santos, what do you think holds them back from really making the step to fulfilling that potential? Because they've got bags of it.
Yeah. It's their mentality then of wanting it that much. Sometimes when you've got the ability, it's easy to be a little bit lazy with it. But the top players who go all the way to the top, they use that ability, but then they work hard with it. And I think that's a mentality to want to keep improving, to keep practice, rather than just relying on your ability. And maybe these guys maybe just relied on their ability a little bit more than that.
And obviously, you've got two children who maybe like playing football, and you're a semi-pro now, and you've been an established pro, throughout your career. What would you say to young players maybe who have that bags of potential now at a young age? What would you say to keep them on the right path? Maybe. What sort of advice would you give them?
Yeah, just don't waste it. Look at the rewards. The rewards that come with the game these days, not just, financially, but everything else, medals, trophies, because that's what, if they're going to be successful, it can't be about the money, especially when you're younger. And if it is, then players, I don't feel like are going to kick on as far as they should. But if it's about winning things and desire, that they'll have a chance. And if you've got the ability and that will to take it, maximise it, you'll have a chance. So it's hard to even advise them other than just to say don't waste it. But I don't feel like, I think they've either got it in them or they haven't. And if they want to take it as far as, to the very, very top, they will. And if they don't, I don't think there's much you can do about it.
As a retired player now looking, do you look through your hands sometimes at antics that Rashford and players like that come out with, and you think just focus? We hear Roy Keane on the TV very elegantly, as Roy always does, saying what Roy thinks. Is that something you agree with though? Do you think just focus, or do you think they're young, it's now the modern way?
Yeah, no, a bit of both, because that is what I want to be saying. I want to be just saying, look, just focus on your game, concentrate on the win and doing well in the game and being successful that way rather than what else comes with it. But I think the game's just changed. I just think that, and you have to almost accept that is part of it now, that there's so many other distractions. There's the social media side of things, all of that has just changed that mentality totally.
And of course, we, Roy was on to Roy. That's a nice little segue there, I suppose. He took charge. What was it like for you in the dressing room when you heard that Roy would be manager of Ipswich Town?
Well, at first I was buzzing because I just thought, like I said before, that we was a little bit soft at times. I thought we've got a good team, but if we just, when it comes, when we have to dig in and grind out a result and be a bit nasty and a bit cute with it. I thought we lacked a bit of that, and I thought perfect. That's what he's all about, getting the most out of players, in a horrible way. And so I thought that would give us a bit of a backbone when we needed it, and we should be good. So I was quite happy. Then we had a couple of players that had spoke to players that had played under him before, and then you start to think, okay, well maybe he's changed. Let's see what these stories might have just been his first job in management. Let's see. And then he comes in and his first meeting was pretty much based around he's not here to make any friends. He's not here to be friends with anyone. He's here to do a job. And then you kind of got the vibe of, okay, this is what it's going to be.
So you're all called into that meeting and then you all walk out of the meeting. Do you talk to your other senior pros and you look at each other, and what is your reaction when you're told that by a new manager? I'm not here to make friends.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough, a tough ride. Like if he's just there and he's not, because a player, everyone wants to be liked by the manager. Everyone wants to do well with the manager. Everyone enjoys being in a team, a situation where everyone's happy and on the same page. Where I feel like just after that sort of meeting, you're kind of like, right, well, it's almost going to be his way or the highway. There's going to be none of this, togetherness. It doesn't feel like it's going to have that feel to it. It's going to be a purely results based situation.
And just to pick up on what something you said a second ago there, you almost echoed something that Alan Lee said on the podcast a couple of months ago, where he said that when Ipswich Town went through a fantastic period of winning at home but not winning away, he felt that at times the reluctance to change the approach, become a bit more nasty, maybe a bit more direct. Is that something you would then agree with Alan in terms of that's why you were happy with Roy coming in?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, you'll have your principles and the way you want to play, which is fine, but there needs to be another side to you as a team as well. And that can be down to just small things of time wasting, staying down, winding the other players up, like chipping away at them in their ear throughout the game, or just little things that just give you the edge. Be a bit nasty, when if someone goes around and all the players come around, make sure there's enough of you there to make sure, no, we're on top here. Pushing and shoving and just mentally getting into people's heads and doing all the small, nasty, cute things that, that do add up as when a game's tight and it's 0-0 and you need to dig in and you've got a few characters in your team, you can probably bully a 1-0 out of that rather than win it, with beautiful football.
I totally get that. I'm famous for it. The 89-minute Lambert cramp. I'd always win it. At 89 minutes, I'd hit the deck, mate. I've got cramp. Let's just slow it down a second.
Yeah, exactly, though, and that's it. And it'll wind the other team up. The referee won't add on that full time normally anyway. And it's just one of the small things, to get an edge.
Absolutely, I was famous for it. I was in goal as well, so they can't play without a keeper.
No, exactly. You're the perfect one to milk it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I was famous for it. But obviously, you played a year under Roy. It was initially good for players like Alex who were out of contract, and then Roy had him in the office and persuaded him to stay. When Roy arrived, other than that team meeting, did he ever speak to you one-to-one and say, "This is what I want from you. This is what I think you can give us"?
Not so much, no. I mean, we had a few meetings. The ones that stick out were one when I got injured, and he was great, and he pulled me in and just said, "Look, don't worry about it. We'll get you looked after by the best people. Go and get yourself away on holiday." So, because it was a surprise from someone like him, because you'd think he'd just like, "You're injured, you're no good to me," pushing me to the side. But he was really good to me, yeah. And then he made me his captain as well. So I obviously had a meeting with him about that, which was obviously I left that feeling, 100 feet tall, because Roy Keane was a hero of mine. That was when I used to really follow and watch football, the Arsenal Man United rivalry, and I used to love all that. So I had a lot of time and respect for him, and he's got an aura about him that I've never seen any manager have. So I had a couple. He didn't pull anything in particular. I think I remember once early on, we played in one of his first games. We played Cardiff, and Gunnarsson was spraying the ball about everywhere and getting it and spraying it around. And I've gone in to tackle him, not meaning to, late, but I've hurt him, and he's ended up going off. I think Roy thinks I noted it, seen him it, and gone and done him, and he loved it. And he pulled me after, and he went, "That's what I need. That's what the character. That's what I'm all about. Don't let him be there taking this and that." And I'm thinking, what have I done here? Right? And then I realised I've just gone over normal time. But then I realised, oh, right, so that's what he's about. He likes that, he wants to be that type of team, and he appreciated thinking that I'd gone and, nobbled their best player.
Which also would have excited you, I bet, having, thought that's what the team was kind of missing. He's ticking the right boxes at the start of the journey, and
Yeah, perfect. Then first few games, and then going into the start of the next season, everything felt good. For we're going to do well here. But his first last 3 games, I think it's maybe 3 games when he come, or it was only a few anyway, and I think we was unbeaten in him. So the expectation rose. Then we had a decent pre-season, and then into the season, and you're thinking we're going to do well here.
So you go into the season, obviously last year of the contract. At any point were you thinking, is there a new deal happening? Were you aware of any sort of talks between your agent, or if you had one, and the club, or were you just focusing on your football?
Yeah, that we was in talks. I mean, it wasn't like no one seemed to be in a rush. And to be honest, I was in no major rush. I just assumed we'd get something sorted. I was, enjoying it. I was happy there, settled, doing, reasonably well. And so I just thought, well, it will take care of itself. These are just how these things happen. But then it dragged on and on a little bit too long, and then I realised there's a chance that I might not be here.
Yeah, and we've all heard the John Walters story about Roy, where they have their set to in the manager's room about John leaving.
Yeah.
Were you there for that? Were you on the outside as he described senior players were?
Yeah. So I was. So. It was fiery. It looked like it could go off, between them two big characters. And, John's not one to shirk, a situation either. So there was always that potential that situation could go off, and you wouldn't have been surprised if you'd have heard that it had gone, too far. But yeah, that was when, because of John obviously had the chance of a good move for himself, which obviously he got and went and done really well. So I kind of appreciate what he was saying, and I can appreciate what the gaffer was saying, in that we don't want to lose one of our best players and you'll stay. But then I think it just become a bit personal with them two, and it was, right, I'm definitely leaving because of you. And he's like, well, no, I'm going to definitely make you stay because of, this, whatever, non-footballing reasons, because I'm going to be stubborn. So yeah, you was aware of it, and you knew that it could go off at any time. And I think that was when it worked out for me, though, that I become captain off the back of John, going. And then so it wasn't the worst thing that happened to me. But yeah, two big characters there.
Were you ever concerned at losing a player like Walter's ability, or were you confident the club would recruit again?
Yeah, it was a concern because John was doing so well, and he fitted. He had that aerial ability. He could score goals. He was a character. He had that nasty edge to him as well, which I liked. So I'd much rather have kept John, for them reasons, as well as him being a good lad. So it was a concern because of you thinking that type of player, it isn't easy to replace. He's a dying breed of type of player, really. A little bit old school, fit as anything as well. So it was a bit of a concern of how they're going to replace him. But obviously we had funds, so that leaves you thinking, well, maybe it's not the end of the world.
And obviously, maybe I've spoken to a few players, and it's becoming the flavour where Roy could get personal and keep it personal, whereas Jim would blow up, and then Monday or Tuesday morning, nothing had ever happened. Is that a fair reflection of how things were under each manager?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, Jim would blow up that much on a Saturday that you're thinking, geez, you don't even want to see him again for at least a week. But then Monday, he'd walk past you, crack a joke, put his arm around you, laughing and joking, and he never held a grudge, he never took it personally, which is great, because that kind of is how it should be, and you move on. Where Roy, I mean, he had his views on, certain people, certain players from certain countries, or, he had his own views, and he'd hold it personally if they let him down. And then it would get personal, as in, the insults would be personal rather than, constructive. And then that's when I think it started to go wrong, as in, then them lads are not going to want to play for him, right? Because if they can, most players can take some constructive criticism, can take being screamed at. But if it gets a bit personal, you start to lose the will to want to play for the manager. And then, like I say, I've always said with Roy, it felt like half didn't want to play for him because he'd probably insulted him or took it too personal, and the other half were a bit too scared to play for him because it was the atmosphere he'd created in the end.
And obviously, as the contract negotiations rumbled on, did Roy ever turn towards your end of the season, towards you, as things maybe were not going well on that side from his point of view? Did you ever feel that from Roy towards the end?
In what way? Sorry.
As he's negotiating or part of the negotiations and the contract isn't coming, did he ever turn maybe a bit personal on you towards the end and try and get in your ear and bully you into, taking whatever the club had on the table?
Yeah, no, he didn't really. No, I mean, he always seemed to be. We never discussed that. He said he was wanting me to stay and that they're going to be offering me a deal and look after me. But then that was it. I think he left that side of things to the people dealing with that side of things. And just assumed that I assumed he had said that he wanted to keep me and that they were going to try and sort a deal out, and then it's up to the club to get it done. But he never got like that with me as in personal. I mean, I've said it before that I think I got on with him as well as probably anyone did at the time, and I come across both ways. I had the fallout with him, and I had a good time with him, which I think I've said the story before about when I was out having some food in Woodbridge. With a big group, family and a few friends, and he come up to the window and was looking at the menu, and I seen him and thought, I was thinking at the time, please don't come in, just because he could easily have walked by me because he'd done it to players in the training ground and blanked me, and it'd be a little bit embarrassing for me, and I wasn't sure I was going to be, even though I thought we had an okay relationship. So I'm thinking, please don't come in like this, just hope he walks on. But he's with his family, then he comes through the door. So I'm thinking, geez. But he comes over, says hello to everyone. So I'm a nice sigh of relief, right? He's been polite. He looks like I don't look like an idiot. He goes and sits down. Now we've got a decent group. We're finishing up anyway. Finished our drinks, desserts, everything else. Go to get the bill, and the waiter comes across and just said, "Oh, your bill's been taken care of by the gentleman over there," and he's just gone and paid the whole bill. And then that's when you think, I can't work this guy out. Like, he can be one extreme to another. But I thought, what a nice touch. What a nice thing to have done, and a totally different side to him that not many might have seen.
Yeah, and I guess with athletes and footballers particularly, you hear often how it's about routine. And if the manager isn't routine, and you literally are, please don't come in because you might blank me, and then suddenly he's paying the bill. As a player who thrives off routine, you're not going to enjoy that.
No, and that's right. And it was eggshells. It was the players were on eggshells. I mean, even during training, it would be 1 minute you could be having a laugh and he seemed to be okay with it, and he might throw the odd chocolate himself, but you could be doing the same thing. Like if you have players in a circle, you've got two in the middle, and people are getting megged and everyone's jumping around, cheering and all of that. And you think that's okay. And then sometimes you'd be looking at it and you can see he was fuming with it, thinking they're having too much fun, it's not serious enough, this and that. And so you don't know where you stand or what's what. Like you say, with the routine of anything, you're a bit like, well, what's right, what's wrong here?
Yeah, that would do my head in. It really would. I can sympathise.
Yeah.
The club was famous, sadly, for bungled contracts under a certain period, and I think yours probably sticks out because you're a player we bought, you're a player we paid good money for, and then we've let you walk on a Bosman, which is disappointing from a fan's point of view, and at a good age. But looking back at at the time at the club, you've scored 13 goals. What sticks out? What is your best memory looking back at that time?
That final season, especially the way it started. Going into my last year, obviously, we felt so settled, wanted to do well. I'd become captain early on in that season within a couple of games, and then I went on a scoring streak. I sort of stepped up to that, role, and I loved it. And I remember thinking and really enjoying that season, and scoring goals. We were doing well at the start, and thinking, this could be good. But that period for me was one of the best periods of my career. That start of that season when I was scoring, I was captain, and everything seemed to be going well. So overall, I look back at the whole time with Ipswich. I think there's 2 or 3 clubs that I do look back and think fondly of, and Ipswich was one of them. And the whole place, the staff at the ground, the staff at the training ground, everyone was, everyone knew each other. And I really liked that feel it had to it. And even like the ex-players coming down, the ex-staff, the scout team, everyone seemed to, be close. And I thrived off that environment. And I used to love going, the training ground was brilliant. And going into training every day and driving out every day and just thinking, this is like, I was buzzing. So the whole time overall, like, even though I struggled at the start, it was a good, learning curve for me. But the whole time I look back with and think, that was an enjoyable period in my career.
Did that feeling change under Roy, though? Where it was suddenly turned from a more family-friendly club to a more professional, fingerprints at the door sort of feel? Did that change?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, he didn't want none of that. I mean, what it felt like that was what the club was built on, because of, I'm sure it was happening before I went there, then he tried to pretty much like change that all. And it's hard because some of it would have been beneficial, and like, we're a professional club, we need to be doing well, getting results. Everything needs to be tightened up here. It's a bit too friendly, a bit too, not serious enough. But I think it just went maybe a little bit too far, and then it created a negative atmosphere in the end. But yeah, I mean, we went from having, like I say, ex-players coming in down when they wanted, coaching staff from the ground. Everyone was close and would eat together after, to the players are here. No one else can get in the training ground. It's fingerprint technology to, maybe a bit too far for what the club was.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Some things had to change. I mean, I remember being in college and driving down to eat my lunch, looking at the training pitch under Jim, which, seems very inconspicuous, but actually maybe from a professional club with, things on the line, is that the sort of thing that should be happening? Possibly not. So some things, as you say, had to change, but you played for some really big clubs over your career, and, sadly you left Ipswich on a Bosman and you went to Portsmouth. What was it like playing in a really buzzing Fratton Park?
Brilliant. Yeah, the atmosphere there, like, they don't get the biggest crowds, but they're tight to the pitch and they're fanatical with it. So that first game of the season, and when it builds up before kickoff, I remember thinking, wow, like this is some atmosphere, and that was a big part of it, because that's another club that I do look back fondly, but it was a family feel to it again, and it was close knit, and so again I enjoyed it. But that atmosphere, the fans, I mean, when we used to concede, our fans would start singing. So I'd never known that at any club, and haven't since, where you go behind and your own fans straight away get behind you. And it was like a thing that they did, where you would concede and they would just start singing and getting behind you, and you'd look around thinking you're expecting boos or something, and they're doing that, and you think, this is brilliant. Oh, okay, right, let's get back. So they've got a great crowd down there. They don't get big crowds, but it's some atmosphere to play in, and another one, like I said, I did enjoy it.
Another club that you played for with a fantastic atmosphere, obviously, is Leeds United. And at the time you joined, the club was obviously in state of maybe a bit of limbo. What was it like moving to a club of Leeds' stature and size? Was it exciting?
Yeah.
Was it a different challenge?
Yeah. It was, like I say, I had a few options at the time, but with Leeds' reputation, it was, how can I not sign for Leeds? It's Leeds. So even their reputation and the history and size of the club was already in my head, and I wasn't even a fan before, and I had no intention to play. I had no chance to play for them before, but I knew then just how big the club they were, and so I just thought with Leeds, is what a club, massive club. Neil Warnock's there, who's got teams promoted before, so we've got a chance of getting promoted, and if you do that at a club like Leeds, it's going to be like some unbelievable times, and that was what drove, attracted me to the club. With Leeds, their fans are fanatical, but their expectations are high as well. So so whereas the other ones, they'll get behind you and they're friendly, and there's a bit more of that atmosphere. With Leeds, it's they want results, and they will back you then, and you'll be a hero, but you've got to do that. And we couldn't quite, pull that off. I think we didn't make the playoffs, and it didn't feel great overall. But you got the feeling that if you could turn it around there, it'd be some place to be.
Absolutely. And of course, you've played under, as you've mentioned there, Neil Warnock, who's, huge character in the game, a fantastic character, was linked with Ipswich in the January period for somebody who maybe, might rescue the season. Yeah. What was it like being a player in a Neil Warnock dressing room?
So it was an experience. I mean, I've had a right few with the managers I've played under, and he was just something different as well. I mean, he would only be there maybe 2-3 days of the week. It'd be laughing, joking, and quite a relaxed atmosphere. But when he lost it, then you knew, you better liven up, sharpish.
Yeah.
But again, I think he had that knack of players wanted to play for him. He had a way of bringing the changing room together to want to win games for him, and he'd make you feel as a group. It was always us against them, us against everyone, and he'd get that mentality in his changing room and take it out there to everyone else. And we felt we were like a whole group, even with the management, rather than manager, players, club, team, go out. It was, we're all in this together. He had got that feel in the changing room for us, and players wanted to win games for him.
And we've all seen the YouTube clips of a Neil Warnock team talk. I'm sure you've seen. Well, you've been in them. That's the you've seen.
Yeah.
What one of them stands out to you where you're sat in the dressing room and Neil walks in? Is there a time you look back and you think, yeah, okay?
Yeah, the ones that I've seen is that stuck out to me was he verbals one of the injured lads. Like, as in, get out of my sight. I can't stand the sight of you. Get out. I don't even want to look at you. That's what he was like. Like, he had his 11, 12, 13. That's all he cared about on the match day was that. And pretty much during the week, he wasn't one to come and say, you're injured, and put his arm around you and say, listen, get yourself fit, get back, you'll be all right. It was, you were a little bit, right, you're no good to me for a bit while you're injured. I'm going to focus on just the team. So when I seen that, and I remember sometimes, you're shuffling around in the change room trying to get out of his eye line if you're not playing or you're injured, and hiding around in the shower. And I remember that, just so he didn't give someone a go, what are you doing in here? You can't, you're no good to me. Get out. I don't want to see your face. That's what he was like.
We obviously had Jim and certain things being thrown. And was Neil a thrower, or was Neil more of a stand in front of you with his finger and look you in the eyes and tell you that you're see you next Tuesday?
Yeah, a bit more of that. He could. I've seen him on some of them clips, and he loses his head. Yeah. I didn't really see so much of that.
Okay.
But he would almost guilt trip you into doing more. It'd be like, come on, how can you be doing that to me? Right, what's the matter with, like, not shouting, screaming, but putting it across in that sort of tone where you're like, yeah, I know, right, okay, I'll sort it. So he wasn't shouting and screaming. It was just, come on, you're better than that. Why are you doing that to me? I've trusted you. I've put you there. Look, yeah, I need more, like that sort of thing. And almost guilt trip you into, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you put faith in me. Right, I'm going to liven up. So,
I think the story that jumps out there is the Sheffield United dressing room where you've got Morgan, and they're saying, I can't do any more. And Neil's saying, what do you mean you can't do any more?
Yeah.
So that type
of like that. He's like that. Yeah, that's what it was.
Having looked at Warnock and Magilton and Keane, what were the major differences between what were three very fiery characters? What was the difference in their fieriness for you as a player?
There wasn't, once they're gone, there wasn't much difference. Yeah, it was head loss. I said about it doesn't become constructive, but at times, if once their heads were gone, it didn't become. Jim would have lost his head too much to even know what he was shouting. Roy would just get personal, and the same with Warnock. It just throws stuff. So I think that they're all very similar in that way. It was more about how they almost really reacted to it.
Yeah. As
in, Jim would then forget about it Monday. Neil Warnock the same. Roy Keane probably would hold a grudge, and it'd carry on. So yeah, I think they were all the same in the way that they were. Dealt with when it comes to, head loss, but they all reacted differently, and I think that was key.
And there we go, guys. Thank you so much for joining us in part 1. Join us in part 2 as we continue our David Norris special, and we look at his stops at Salford, at Lancaster, and other various stops down the Football League pyramid. Join us for part 2 very soon.